guardian angels of the priests.
Sometimes when a man feels called to give his life to God in the church, he thinks automatically that I'm called to the priesthood. But actually, what is calling him is that clerical life of prayer and of service. There are men who want to give their life to the church right away with the talents that they have, but they don't feel called to doing 7 or 8 years of study in a classroom with many exams, etc. They simply want to grow in their faith, grow in the knowledge and the love of Christ, perfecting the particular talents and gifts that God has given them. And that indeed could be a man who's called to the oblatehood. We have men who want to perfect their talents as musicians or in the office setting as an office administrator, men who like to build things, who like to manage projects. We can obtain for them a specific formation in a variety of these hands-on tasks, and that way the oblate is really able to give all the time and effort that all of these tasks really demand within the family of the Institute as an oblate.
I find that God has definitely given me lots of gifts in music, and it's my duty to share those gifts. And I find it to be a real beauty of God's goodness, this organism that depends on different parts. And so it's my job to bring the gifts of music that He's given me to help teach the other oblates and sometimes helping the priests, helping the candidates to understand the sacred music and the importance of it. And so then everyone is lifted up through the gift that God gives to me. But there's also other oblates who are better at things liturgical, and I'm not as good at those things and remembering how to serve and all of those details. And so it's his job to share that gift with people like me so that I can be lifted up and become better through his gift. And so each of our gifts ends up making the whole better.
Living with oblates, it's always an edifying experience. It's edifying on many levels. It's edifying first on the level of contemplating the wisdom of divine providence, how God's uncreated wisdom can bring together such different people with different skill sets and different temperaments and form a whole and form a harmony. I think today's society also lacks a true notion of what harmony is. Many times they tend to confuse identity. So all these people align and it's just uniformity. Harmony is not uniformity. Harmony is the right blend of all these different notes, all these different characters, talents. That's harmonious. It takes differences to make harmony.
Oblates in general are here to pour themselves out for the service of God, to use all of their talents and abilities for that end. And so now I play the organ for liturgies. I didn't play the organ before coming to the Institute. I was taught during my formation here, and I was given training to accompany chant. I've also been learning to compose a little bit. I've been able to just use a general artistic intuition to make the Paschal candle for Easter this year. While I was working, I used my talents for self-amusement. But when I visited for discernment at the Institute, that was when the concept of giving these gifts. And so, being introduced to the Oblate Vocation opened up that possibility of even pursuing the arts and music seriously, but still for a higher purpose. We're all given our gifts, and we have to render an account of them at the end of time, because God gave us those gifts for a reason. We have to use ultimately for His greater glory.
I had this desire to do something greater, this desire to serve the Lord and be with Him. And it expressed itself in a very practical way. And it wasn't this mystical vision that our Lord told me, come follow me. It was very practical. I went to my spiritual director and I asked, how am I supposed to know if I have a vocation? And he said, pay attention to the desires that our Lord puts in your heart. And I think it's important to mention that I did daydream about being a married man. I did. And about being a composer and living a life in this fancy house and things, right? Those were daydreams. But next to those daydreams were also daydreams of being in the choir with all of the oblates and the priests living together this consecrated life. I was touched by the example of oblates before me that were always around me, and I would daydream about doing the same thing they did. And the fact that the two were together was clear to me that I have the choice between the natural vocation that everyone has to be married or this extra supernatural vocation.
Avi Raymond, when he was first born, I served his baptism. And then as he grew up, I was at his first communion, and we were at his first communion party. As years go by, I got transferred away, and I went back when he received the cassock as an oblate.
One thing that I really see in young adults is that they're going through the motions, they're not really looking. Our Lord wants you to look for him. He wants you to search for him because he will grant you everything that you are praying for. And if you are looking for a vocation, if you are looking for a purpose, he will grant it unto you. My own experience is that I actually was like a lot of people in their young adulthood. They did not know what they wanted to do. They went through the motions, either playing video games or just not even trying to do anything. Through my own experience, going to school really did help give me the skills I needed, but I needed a purpose in life, and our Lord gave me that purpose.
Even in my training to be an oblate, I had a lot of peace. The more I lived this way of life and the more I learned more of what my vocation meant, the more the peace came, which was a good sign from the Lord. And it wasn't always with happiness. It wasn't always a cheerful peace, but there was a real stability that was underlying everything. And that's only God. That's from standing on him and really being held by him. It's from being held by him, and that's what your vocation is saying, yes, I will go where you want to lead me, because I know that you're good, and so if you're leading me there, you're leading me to good. And it's better than my own understanding, it's better than my own desires, it's better than my own wants and paths that I've followed before that, because it's you who are all good.
Since I was a little kid, that's all I talked about was wanting to become a priest or a religious. And as I went along, by the time I was 16, I started going around looking at religious communities. I visited at the different monasteries and stuff, which I didn't see as my vocation. And finally, in the end, I kind of just gave up for a little bit. I kept doing my tasks, looking around. My mother kept coming into there saying, hey, look, I found this ad about a community that's there. I'd be like, oh, come on, Mom. Not again. We did this last week. And kept doing it over and over and over. After about 10 tries like that, one day she came in and she said, hey, look, there's a new community. Mom, come on. We tried this over and over again. This is not going to work. No, but this one's different. This one here, it's a new one that Bishop Burke just invited in to the diocese recently. My interest was piquing because I knew of Bishop Burke. I never had met him yet. I said, okay, let's check it out. She goes, I already called it. So we have an appointment to go visit them. And something in that meeting, there was just, I had this sign, this little thing in my mind that kept saying, this is where you're going to spend the rest of your life.
There are a lot of people who lack direction in the modern world who need to seriously consider that a religious vocation could be a real option that would make them happy in a supernatural sense, but also in a natural sense. Not everyone's called to be married, but in community life, you have the family life, finally, because the Institute is a family. It's done with that charity that makes life sweet and agreeable. So many people are missing that in their lives. So many adults, they're sad and they're depressed because they're alone. They don't have anyone. But in the Institute, we show them charity, and I think it does make their life better. And there's a lot of people that need to understand that, a lot of the deepest longings of your soul can be fulfilled in pursuing a religious vocation.